Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are at game number 2 between Aristeo and ESC's GoOdy. This time we are on the map Shakuris Plateau. We have got Aristeo spawning in the lower left-hand position as our red Zerg player, and in the far upper right-hand position, ESC's GoOdy as the purple Terran player. Last game, we did see go to Aristeo. Aristeo with a very strong performance. You know, we saw GoOdy push out with an incredibly strong early game push. This allowed him to actually snipe out Aristeo's base. What Aristeo then did, he just masked up enough roaches to break GoOdy's contain, and then he pushed out, delayed GoOdy's natural expansion, was able to harass that a little bit with some roaches, worked his way up to Mutalisk, was able to do tremendous amounts of damage with that. GoOdy just did not have the upgrades necessary for his Marines to fend back those mutas, and then once Thors came into play, Aristeo pulled on back, masked up his forces again, and we saw a big 2-base push from GoOdy, to which Aristeo responded by hiding some roaches, counterattacking, and he just demolished GoOdy's main base and natural expansion while GoOdy was out pushing against Aristeo, and then Aristeo able to defend himself, eventually won the game. So nice little recap there of last game, but certainly very, very interesting indeed. And I was thoroughly impressed, in all honesty, with Aristeo. After losing his natural expansion, managing to claw his way back into the game was just unreal, and certainly good on him, most certainly. We can see right now Aristeo moving up with the drone scout. He will be scouting GoOdy's main base. GoOdy going with a very interesting style of wall off here. This is not your typical barracks positioning at all. We can see the drone there did try to do a little bit of harassment, and unfortunately not do any damage actually to that SCV. The SCV is alive and well. He is feeling just dandy right now. We're going to see Aristeo just kind of dancing around right now with that drone. Now, last game I mentioned it briefly, and I'm going to go ahead and touch on it now that we're in the early stages of the game. So Heart of the Swarm, guys, it's going to be nuts. There's a lot of big changes coming to the multiplayer, and although things are still subject to change, it's looking pretty interesting. I cannot wait to see how the metagame ends up panning out once Heart of the Swarm does eventually come. I'm expecting it, you know, sometime probably mid-next year. I'm guessing not early, simply because Diablo 3 is slated for early next year, and I don't think they're going to release both titles simultaneously. It just seems a little unlikely. It's possible, though. It is certainly possible, and it's not completely out of the question, but I feel like they're probably going to wait on Heart of the Swarm until at least a couple months after Diablo 3 does drop. We can see right now SCV Scout of GoOdy moving on into Aristeo's natural expansion, checking the fact that that is in fact up. We've got one queen coming out of there, another queen coming out here in the main, couple of Zerglings, but look at that Roach Warren. So right now, again, another relatively early Roach Warren here from Aristeo. Now, last game, I didn't actually spot it early on, but we saw those few roaches come out. Aristeo used them early game to actually deny Hellions from doing too much damage, and this time, however, when he spotted the tech lab there on that Rax, it tipped him off to the fact that Reapers were likely coming, and here they are. So coming out with that Roach Warren will allow him to deal with this Reaper quite handedly. We can see a couple of Zerglings need to be very careful. The Queen's going to have a much better chance at actually fending off that Reaper and preventing him from doing too much damage. But once that Roach Warren actually finishes building, which is right now, expect a couple of roaches. In fact, we're going to be seeing 3 roaches here, so the same number we saw early game last time from Aristeo. And again, look at that. Just the presence there of that Reaper is enough to stop Aristeo from mining, even for just a moment. Back over here inside of the main base of GoOdy, we can see an expansion coming on out. We also have a tech lab on this factory here. Would not be surprised if we saw some Blue Flame Hellions, given this expansion being so early. That is what I'm going to expect from him. But actually, notice Sidon didn't come out with some siege tanks. That's interesting. I mention that simply because when you go for an expansion this early, you usually need something to hold off your Zerg opponent. And a lot of times you'll see Blue Flame Hellion harass as a transition into that. But GoOdy deciding to go for Marine Tank instead in the early game, and we'll be relying on that bunker early on to defend a little bit. Got one Reaper over here at the Zelnaga Tower. Still no kills for him. We do have a Roach moving out to grab the tower up here in the northern position. And then back over here inside of the natural base and main of Aristeo, we can see the metabolic boost finally coming on through over here. Roach Warren is just sitting idly, nothing going on. Not going to be getting any research, of course, until that layer is up in play. And it looks like Aristeo is, in fact, going to be droning up right now, really just focusing on his economy. Again, just using those few roaches to defend himself against any possible Reaper harass. Now, we do have a Scout scouting roach moving on up here, and he will be scouting out that bunker, trying to do a little bit of damage there. Unfortunately, not going to be able to get much out at all. We will be having the tank set up shop eventually. That siege tech getting very close to finish. Here comes another tank, and also the starport here. That is almost finished for GoOdy, so GoOdy will be able to start churning out units out of that once that is complete. Still just working on saturating his main base now, finally lifting off that orbital, and will be working his way down into that natural expansion. Back over here at Roach, bypassing that Reaper. Reaper needs to head out of there, and there we go. Reaper will be making his way up into the high ground, and right now nothing that Aristeo can do to actually get rid of him, so the Reaper is nice and safe up there for the moment. Here comes the expansion for GoOdy landing down. We've got a perfectly placed scouting overlord here, just close enough to actually scout out and click on these mineral patches. And actually, there you go, in just spotting the fact that the refinery is building right now, that is enough information to tell Aristeo that that expansion is coming. We've got the Reaper back over here, and he's just scouting to see when and if Aristeo does move into a third again. Aristeo still just on 2 bases, working very heavily on saturation. You can see droning up very hard right now. 8 more drones coming out. We got that layer almost finished. Let's see what Aristeo decides to transition into. Will it be a Spire like we saw him come out with last game, or will he be getting upgrades right away for his roaches? Looks like we do have a couple of roaches coming out. Keep an eye on that production tab, see what he decides to do. And there it is, the Spire coming out here for Aristeo, right by that layer here inside of the main base. So Aristeo will be working his way up into Mutas to do some harass, just like we saw him do last game. Where did that Reaper go? That's the question. Oh my gosh, we've got a drop going on. A beautifully placed roach there, though, and GoOdy coming out with the tank drop, and he will be actually relying on some medevac micro. This could actually be very impressive here for GoOdy. Let's see what he's able to do. We've got those queens, and actually that's enough to fend off that medevac. So that roach proved pretty pivotal there for Aristeo. That gave him just enough time to move down with those 2 queens and threaten that medevac to actually getting shot out of the sky. Plus those roaches would have been on the low ground. But that tank micro and that medevac would have been very strong against harassing the economy, but also against roaches, because the roach has a projectile. Well, the tank is an instant fire, and with proper micro, you can take it out without taking any damage to your tank whatsoever. Not seeing that micro there, though. GoOdy actually taking a couple shots there to the tank, lifting it up, though, before the Zerglings can do much of any damage. Aristeo just kind of dancing around right now. We've got those tanks moving back down on the low ground, and again, GoOdy just trying to harass a little bit. Really, though, not doing too much. He killed off the 1 roach, but that was pretty much it. Spire just about to pop. We have got the level 1 range upgrade coming out. Also, the speed upgrade in the Glial reconstitution here for Aristeo. So Aristeo will be going roach heavy at some point in the game, although not right as of yet. Just sitting on those 4 roaches. Eventually, his transition will be into, just like we saw last game, Infestor Roach. A very strong composition, but he will, of course, in the meantime, be harassing with some mutas. 6 mutas about to pop right now. He will be moving out with those right away, and here comes the transition into infestors. Infestation pit going down. Aristeo dropping his 3rd and 4th at the exact same time. So what's going to happen right now is he will be relying on buying himself some time with these mutas. He just wants to do a little bit of damage, but he is teching up very hard, coming out with that 3rd and 4th expansion right away. Very interesting indeed. We can see that 3rd almost finished. Mutas moving across the map. Now back over here for GoOdy. GoOdy sticking with Marine Tank at the moment. He's got a heavy mech transition, though. We can see lots of Thors coming into play. Decent spread here. Also has some nice placement of those turrets, and that's actually going to prevent these mutas from doing too much damage. So, yes, Aristeo does need to buy himself some time. The flip side of that, though, is that if GoOdy just doesn't push out, then he's got ample time, and he actually doesn't really have to do too much damage with those mutas to still be in a decent spot, because especially, you know, the apparent transition here from GoOdy is mech heavy. Pretty obvious right now. You can see Blue Flame Hellions coming out. He's sitting very Thor heavy at this point in the game, not going for that standard Marine Tank composition at all, mixing it up a bit. And, you know, with this, though, it takes a while to actually push out. Now, we do have a Raven coming into play as well. The point being, though, that you're going with a mech style of play off of 2 bases. It's going to take you a little while until you're actually ready to push out. Mech is so slow and so vulnerable in the center of the map unless you have that strong, large force sitting near that 200 supply, sitting near supply cap. So until that point, GoOdy's not really looking to move out at all. So this, again, is going to give Aristeo plenty of time to get up this expansion and get it nice and saturated, take advantage of that economy, and then continue his transition into the mid and later stages of the game. See those pathogen glands now just finishing extra energy for those infestors. We've got 3 infestors coming into play. Still, I do not think they have done anything this game but scouting around the map, so the mutas just continue to dance around. But right now, we're getting in the position where Aristeo is starting to get a very strong economy. He's working his way up into Hive Tech, and this is pretty scary in all honesty. Now, GoOdy is planning to push off with this heavy mech style play once he's near supply cap. That's basically the go-to plan here when you go with this heavy mech style of build. So it's not over yet, but the more and more time Aristeo has, the harder he is able to macro up. And obviously, if you leave a Zerg player alone for too long, they tend to be in a very strong position, and Aristeo could certainly be in that spot. We've got that Hive Tech just about finished. My expectation is that we are going to see a Greater Spire and work into Broodlords as well, and then at that point, GoOdy is going to have to manage to come out with something to deal with that. Yes, he's got Thors, but they aren't the greatest unless those Broodlords are clumped up. He's probably going to need some Vikings, but then the Vikings have to contend with the fungal growth there of the Infestors for Aristeo. So very macro-heavy game here from both players. GoOdy now working his way into that third expansion. You can see right now getting very near supply cap. Aristeo sitting at 182. We take a look at the army supply, 106 army supply for Aristeo as opposed to the 88 of GoOdy. In terms of resources lost, again, not a whole heck of a lot has happened this game, but so far GoOdy is a little bit behind. Here comes the push. We have got that Greater Spire coming out as well as those Corruptors that will allow for that transition into Broodlords. Roaches preparing to push onto that third expansion. Need to be careful though. Tank line is set up. We also, of course, have the, right up front here, we have got the Raven. That's going to allow him to drop point defense drones. Also, that cloak detection, very, very beneficial as well. That'll allow him to see Brood Roaches moving forward, anything like that. Strong mech push, finally moving across the map. Infestors moving forward with the fungal growth there. Roaches unable to engage as that tank line setting up just in time. Aristeo needs to be very careful about where he engages. He wants to engage in the center of the map that is wide open. Doesn't want to engage near choke points just like this one here. So needs to be very, very careful. Greater Spire almost finished. He's getting so very close to having those Broodlords in play. The mech preparing to move across the map. Aristeo still very, very wary about engaging right now. He's got his units spread out. Here comes GoOdy. Roaches preparing to move forward right now. Needs to be careful though. Again, there we go. The Greater Spire almost finished. We should start seeing some Broodlords morph in very soon. There we go. 7 Broodlords. 7 Broodlords coming out right now for Aristeo, but Aristeo is in danger of losing the expansion over here. He's got no counter harass at all going on right now. He is just needing to defend himself. This expansion is a goner. That's going to get taken out by the tank line plus those Thors. But again, look at this. 7 Broodlords, and once those come into play, I am very concerned for GoOdy. GoOdy just does not have the composition to deal with Broodlords. He gave Aristeo far too much time. Now Aristeo's expansion is gone, but here comes the push. Broodlords getting ready to move forward. Roaches up at the backside. We've got some Infestors with there as well. As long as those Broodlords stay spread out, they should not be taking too much splash damage at all. Roaches mopping up most of the light units as Broodlords going to town on the rest. Broodlings forcing splash damage against the tanks and the rest of the army here of GoOdy, and Aristeo mopping up GoOdy's push. He lost his third, but GoOdy has lost his entire army. GoOdy trying to rebuild, but this is looking very rough right now. You can see Aristeo at 116 army supply as opposed to the 34. And as you saw in that battle, those Thors, not the greatest against the Broodlords. Unless Aristeo clumped up all of his Broodlords into one big ball, then the Thors are just, they're awful, really, against those Broodlords. He needs Vikings to be able to deal with that, or stemmed up Marines. Stemmed up Marines, of course, you run the danger of dealing with fungal growth, but the same thing is the case with those Vikings. So it is a tough situation. You give a Zerg player this much time, as Aristeo has had, and he starts to get in a dominant position. You can see right now already at supply cap, 126. Army supply for Aristeo as opposed to the 63. So now all Aristeo has to do is really throw his units there. You can see those Hellions getting fungal growth taken out. These Hellions not standing much of a chance at all. And right now, really, all Aristeo has to do is push up onto this third expansion, and GoOdy will just be in a terrible, terrible position. No counter aggression going on at all. We aren't seeing any drops or anything like that from GoOdy. So GoOdy just trying to struggling really to stay alive here. Here comes the push, though. I mean, he's trying to rebuild his forces as quickly as possible, but I don't think it matters. We're seeing some attempted counter harass here, though. Hellions moving out, and they're actually just going to be trying to do some economic damage. He's got a good opportunity here. Here we go. Jones getting roasted right now. Aristeo losing quite a bit of workers here. Should be turning to engage there. We can see the Mutas actually moving forward, and that's going to be enough. The Hellion harass finally taken out. Here go those Broodlords preparing to move across the map. I'm really surprised that Aristeo waited so long. He has been at supply cap for quite a while. Now finally pushing forward, though, moving on down with those Roaches as well as those Broodlords Corruptors to protect those Broodlords against any Vikings. You can see the Vikings there. Also a couple couple of mutas in the mix, and there's a lot of Vikings. We've got those roaches preparing to move on down. Broodlords will be doing as much damage as possible. There are so many Vikings, and there's not enough anti-air right now at all. There we go. Finally gonna be seeing some fungal growth here from those infestors. Hopefully, what are they doing? Infestors need a fungal. Doesn't matter though, the roaches are doing so much damage, and even though he lost all those Broodlords, there are still so many roaches alive. They will be taking out this third expansion. Splash damage from the tank up on the high ground, but there's no more mining going on at this third. The natural expansion very low on resources. The roaches doing so much damage, and again, as mentioned, Aristeo is in the position where he does not care really if he's throwing away units. You can see, he had a great opportunity to lay a lot of fungal growth on those Vikings. He didn't even do that. I'm not sure precisely why, but moving on down, he's got still so many roaches, and he's got that huge economic advantage that he can just quickly rebuild his forces. We can see right now 6 infestors coming on out. We've got a few more corruptors moving out there. Still so many roaches. GoOdy's income is just terrible right now in comparison to Aristeo's. A couple of infested Terrans getting dropped down over there. I did see an attempted drop moving out. I believe that got, there we go. So there's the drop moving out over there for GoOdy. That is spotted by Aristeo though, so Aristeo should be able to deal with it. And Aristeo just continuing to move around and just deny expansion. That is really all he has to do at this point in the game. He's just so far ahead. Medevac, here it is. Not going to do too much at all though. We've got a couple of heads on there. There are a lot of spine crawlers over here, plus that queen. That's actually going to be way more than enough. And I'm really just a little shocked that this game is still taking place, really. It's just very odd because Aristeo is in such a commanding position. He's just really not deciding to commit. He's a little bit concerned about walking into that tank line, and still, I mean, the game's over, really. You can take a look here. You can see how far behind, even though he's starting to get back up in terms of minerals. He's taken so many losses. He's really so far behind in this game that GoOdy's not standing much of a chance. He is trying to redeem himself, though, by doing a little bit of economic damage. Let's take a look, though, at the total workers killed. You can see Aristeo so very far ahead of GoOdy. 48 workers killed as opposed to the 26 for GoOdy. Just will be continuing to macro up right now. Adrenal glands coming out. Carpus level 1. Melee attack level 1. Look at those bad boys, though. Ultralisk. 3 Ultralisk coming out. None in play at the moment, but once those 3 pop, that's going to be a great siege breaker here for pushing that front line against those tanks. And we're going to actually see Aristeo push on down to that third expansion. Again, trying to deny the economy. Is he deciding to push on up into the tank line? Yes, he is. Here it comes. Roach is pushing forward and just, again, throwing his units against the wall of tanks here for GoOdy, and it does not matter because Aristeo at such a supply advantage once more for the second battle in a row, able to mop up everything that GoOdy has, and there it is, finally calling the GG. Aristeo takes this best of 3 series here, 2 games to 0 against GoOdy. GoOdy unfortunately just could not handle the massive Zerg army in this game. In all honesty, GoOdy gave Aristeo way too much time to tech up. Come that first engagement, Aristeo had no problem taking it out, was able to quickly resupply, and then hurt the economy of GoOdy, and at that point the game was pretty much over. Alright guys, so happy to be back from BlizzCon, very happy to be commentating some StarCraft 2 games again. Look forward for some more StarCraft 2 commentaries. I will also be starting up those strategy videos again very shortly. Look at that, that is hilarious. We've got the floating little egg there. So yeah guys, really excited to be back. Look forward to some more commentaries and strategy videos. As always, if you like the content, please subscribe. Thank you for watching. Keep watching and keep owning.